Hello and welcome back to KSP at ASTRA. Today we have the Duna mission. Yeah, today we're actually sending Kerbals to Duna. Granted, you won't see the end of it, but yeah, we're starting out with Tanker 2. And Tanker 2 is going to be on its way to the space station, but because you've already seen two of the other tanker missions in the last episode, or just another one of them, and you'll see several more, I just decided to do it really quickly and just kind of get it over with as quickly as possible in this episode so we can get on to other things, aka sending it to Duna. Now, the tankers are a little bit wobbly. I did talk about that. They're not exactly the most stable thing, especially when you speed up the video, but it docked quite nicely. Now, if you like content like this, it would be really nice to have you, put a like on it, subscribe, do really anything. It would really nice if you commented. But yeah. Anyway, we're here with the Calypso. It is currently docked to Odin Station, and we are going to undock it. Now, we actually do need to do a quick little fuel run out there now that we have a full tanker full of fuel. It now is completely filled and has more than enough Delta V to basically go out there, offload all of the fuel, and then come back. So we're going to do exactly that. We're putting all three Kerbals on board because why not? None of the Kerbals would, if we left any, none of them would have a way to get back home if anything were to happen. So we're putting them on the spaceship, which should be good enough for going around anywhere. After all, it is a spaceship. So, what's going on here? It is a very slow craft, just like we discussed in the prior episode. It is actually so slow because its thrust to weight ratio is 0.1. It has a 1% of its it produces enough thrust that it only produces 1% of its mass. Like it can only move 1% of its mass. If that makes any sense. It probably doesn't, but its thrust to weight ratio is just literally just 0.1, which makes it super slow, and all of the burns take forever. We will send up more Calypso class rockets in the near future, and yeah, they will all be just as slow. So here we go. We have Tanker 2. We are going to undock Tanker 2 and send it back home. And yeah, it's easy just to send these back home with their little monopropellant engines. They're relatively easy to maneuver when you don't have to dock them. And, their thrust to weight ratio is kind of high. Like, they actually don't have an issue moving around, and they're quite light once they're empty. But yeah, so it's going to go through the atmosphere very, very warmly. It burned off a couple of solar panels, and as you can see, we kept that lower stage. I'm using it as a heat shield because last time we kind of burnt off the bottom of the rocket. So I thought, hey, let's use an engine as a heat shield, and then we'll use our actual heat shield as a heat shield, and then it won't have any sort of issue. And it seemed to have worked. And here I am, just I flipped it, just, a little cheeky flip, a couple of them, just to kind of help slow it down and disperse some of the heat that is being applied to the craft. And here we are coming in, unfortunately, in a weird state, upside down basically, and for some reason it produces a lot of lift, and I don't really think it should, but for some reason it does, and it did. Yeah. But now we are back to the Calypso, And the Calypso is going to be, well, it's currently on its way to the Mun. And here we are about to make our capture burn, which will allow us to begin orbiting the Mun. Now, the capture burn takes a little bit, but it's not too terribly expensive. I mean, as of right now, we've currently used half of our fuel, which is quite a bit of fuel if you are, flying a rocket. But this should be the easiest. This is the easiest portion of the entire thing. But it did take forever because we did have to basically we had to do a lot. Docking with this craft is very slow, and because, well, it's massive. It is quite literally the largest thing I've ever put into Mun orbit. Well, I guess the station is probably larger now, but it is quite literally the largest single craft, just one solid unit that I've put into space and into orbit, and it feels that way. It is very slow all the time. All right, so here we are. I'm fine-tuning our encounter so that we can actually get really close to the rocket, so that we can basically just like dock as soon as possible, have the just the closest possible thing so that our docking maneuver doesn't take too long. And I even decided to use the monopropellant engines on the front of the capsule to help with, because they do have a slightly higher thrust to weight ratio, but they are very, very, very inefficient. So like they can help just a little bit. But here we are. We are actually finally closing in, and we're going to be docking. So here we are, closing in on the place that we need to go. And you can kind of see just how slow the monopropellant is. This is at 15 times speed, by the way. Just so you want to know. This is at 15 times speed, and it is excruciatingly slow. And we actually ended up passing the thing, and I couldn't bring it back in time. And so here we are, very slowly coming in. We are actually coming in at a slight angle, which made me a little bit worried because there is a capsule right there that is, kind of blocking the way. But here we are, just going to dock to the fuel tank because that is, after all, what we are refueling. And so we're going to dock up to this station. And yeah, everything ended up being fine. We ended up transferring all the fuel, and we are now on our way back with with a significantly lighter load. Now all of the fuel that is left is the fuel that are in those side tanks. Those center tanks are now completely empty, which does change the thrust to weight ratio a decent amount. It just changes everything. This craft is much more snappy when it's a little bit lighter, especially docking and undocking and things like that. And I actually believe that this is now the lightest this craft has ever been. It quite literally could not be lighter than it is right now. So, this is when I started to think, well, that should be enough fuel for several missions to the surface. Each one of those missions to the surface takes a year. Like, they go down there, and they're down there for a year. So, we could potentially use this spacecraft for something else. I mean, it does have life support. When it's fully fueled, it has roughly 3,000 or like 3,500 meters per second of fuel. What's to say we don't put a lander on the other end? I mean, why would you need a lander? Or why wouldn't you, like, why would you need it between now and then? I'm not going to any other planets, or I'm not refueling any other stations. It seemed like a no-brainer to me. Like, this seemed about as reasonable as possible. So I was like, yeah, let's just go to Duna. Let's send the 3 Kerbals that are currently on board. Let's send them to Duna. We're going to send them all the way to Duna. And we are going to basically just send them on their merry way. They're going to go to Duna. They're going to land on Duna. They're going to do some Duna science. And then they will be on their way back, having a merry old time. And I thought, yeah, that's probably a good idea. This is exactly what I will do. And now that's what we're doing. So, here we are. We're coming in to dock with the station. As I said, it is much easier to dock this craft when it is much larger and can actually, move around. So that is what we're going to do. We lined it up almost perfectly. We do need to adjust it just a little bit so that we can line it up just right so we can dock. And then we will send 2 more tankers, as you will see in the next couple of minutes. But here's the docking. The docking is pretty simple. And as you can see in the last container we sent up a little life support module up on there so that it has life support. But yeah, here's Tanker 3. Tanker 3 just went straight to the station. It was basically the exact same thing. It just went up there, it docked with the station, and refueled the giant Calypso. And here it is. It docked, and unfortunately, the Tanker 3 ended up burning up on re-entry. But the first stage and the second stage of the Phoenix launcher actually ended up just surviving. But here is the lander. This is the Ares lander. I named it the Ares lander because, like Mars, Ares, they're basically the same. Just thought kind of fun. So yeah, it's going to dock to the Odin station first because we still need to refuel the Calypso. So it's just going to be docked to the other docking port as we continue to fuel everything up, which isn't really an issue. As you can see, there is actually a heat shield and a fairing on it. It's been a minute since I've tried to land on Duna, and I was like, yeah, I might as well just be safe. This is being done relatively low tech for the time, so might be smart to just have a surplus of lander. And here's the first stage coming in to be recovered. We're really starting to get these recoveries down, and it's making me particularly excited for future launch vehicles and future tanks that we will get with the science from our Duna mission, because I am on top of that lander. I did include a science lab. There is a science lab on top of the lander, and it is a very small one. It's not going to be particularly great, but it will net us a bunch of extra science, which will allow us to unlock a bunch of things on our tech tree. It'll allow us to go to Joule and things like that. We'll finally have communications dishes that'll reach out to Joule, which will be nice because that mission earlier where I tried to send it to Joule and it just did not connect, which was quite unfortunate. As well as it will send us extra money. It'll give us extra money. We are almost out of money, by the way. I'm hedging a lot of money on this Duna mission. This mission and the Calypso, just in general, were incredibly expensive, and we've run out of pretty much all of our contract and science money, which is unfortunate, but you know, it's how the cookie crumbles. Our reputation's really good, so I can use the reputation to basically make a bunch of money back, or just get a bunch of money if I'm really pressed. But I don't think it'll be an issue. As you can see, I also included a dish and and like a short range communication thing, because once we get to Duna, we will actually have a satellite in Duna orbit that we will finally be able to communicate with, which has science on board, and it can finally send that science on home, as well as stay connected, because there is a solar panel and large batteries on board the little science lab. I was thinking about, once we leave Duna, we might as well just ditch it there and leave it as basically a recon thing. It also double as like a tiny little space station around Duna that other things could dock to in the future, maybe, who knows. But I thought it would be fun. So yeah, here we come in for the docking maneuver, where we're going to dock to the Calypso, to Odin. We're gonna dock to Odin. And yeah, I just did a little bit of time warp there so we can get in a little bit quicker. Yeah, I really like how this mission is shaping up. Everything is going exactly to plan, which I particularly like. Yeah, here we are, closing in on the station. And as we get a little bit closer, we will dock and send up Tanker 4, which will be our next little mission. Yep, here's Tanker 4, also on a Phoenix 2. Tanker 4, we recovered the first and second stage, and the upper tanker is actually still docked to Odin Station. I never undocked it. And I'm just thinking about keeping it there for a while. I did miss it a little bit. I changed out the top so we could actually add solar panels to the lander, because I accidentally forgot to put solar panels on the lander, which was kind of unfortunate, but you know, whatever. And yeah, here we are backing up the Calypso so that we can finally dock the Ares lander and its science module to the Calypso. And we will finally be on our way to Duna. It has taken a while, mostly because I could send a direct flight to Duna, but I want to send more realistic craft to Duna, if you know what I mean. Like, in order to go to Duna, you're going to need a much larger craft. I can't send Kerbals inside of a little tiny capsule all the way there, because, like, of course I could send Kerbals in a little tiny capsule all the way there, but it just doesn't feel right. I feel kind of bad for doing that. Not like bad, but you know what I mean. It doesn't feel real enough. But yeah, I actually forgot to include the actual burn to Duna. For some reason, I didn't record it, which is unfortunate, but you saw a little tiny burn, and you can see me getting the encounter, and the fact that it is roughly 70 days away, which is kind of crazy. It's not that long until we actually end up at Duna, which is kind of crazy to me. Yeah, here I am checking the thing, and I realized that at Liberty Landing, I forgot to turn on the life support when I landed the life support lander there, which is actually in the next episode. But I wanted to keep this one short, so you didn't end up seeing that. But yeah, I accidentally expired 2 Kerbals, which is unfortunate. Yeah, and on that devastating news, that'll be the end of this episode, and I will be gone for the rest of the week. So this is going to be my post for today. This is why it's on a Wednesday. Yeah. All right, peace out, goodbye, and have a good week and weekend.